Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm Gwen Chapman. I'm the Dean of the College of Social and Applied Human Sciences here at the University of Guelph, and I'm just delighted to welcome you all to this evening's Truscott Lecture. It's my pleasure to welcome you here. As we start the evening, we would like to acknowledge the Attawandaron people on whose traditional territory the University of Guelph resides, and offer our respect to the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Métis neighbors as we strive to strengthen our relationships with them. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging them reminds us of the important connection to this land where we learn and work. It is now my pleasure to introduce the president of our university, Dr. Franco Vaccarino, the president and vice chancellor, who is going to start off the next stage of the evenings.
Well, thank you very much, Gwen, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the University of Guelph's 2017 Truscott Lecture in Justice. This lecture series is important not just for the university, but really for all of us. Canada's judicial system is the guardian of public interest. And so as an institute of higher learning and as citizens, we need to be active and we need to be thinking about and critically thinking about ways to help our criminal justice system adapt to what is a very, very fast-paced and evolving world. This fundamentally is the goal of the Truscott Lecture, to invite not just our university community, but those outside of the university as well, to explore issues of justice at a deeper level. In 2008, when James Lockyer, who helped Stephen Truscott obtain his acquittal, spoke here about wrongful convictions, he started a dialogue that I'm very proud to say that we are continuing today. And that's why I have to say I'm extremely pleased and delighted to see not just our faculty and students here tonight, but also other members of the community. So I want to thank all of you for joining us. I'd also like to make a few special mentions. I'd like to thank a number of the guests that are here with us this evening. The Truscott family, delighted to have our Truscott family here with us. Great. Had the pleasure of meeting Ryan during the reception earlier and to have Stephen and Marlene Truscott here. Thank you so very, very much. Your generosity has truly helped make this evening possible and the success that it is. Thank you. The Honorable Yassir Naqvi is with us. Welcome. Thank you. As well as a number of prominent members of the community, including our own Member of Provincial Parliament, Liz Sandals. Liz has been the long-standing MPP for Guelph and served as a champion for higher learning for our great university while appointed as the Minister of Education. MPP Sandal now serves as President of the Treasury Board, and I'm delighted that she's here with us tonight and pleased to invite her to introduce today's speaker. Liz.
Well, thank you, Franco, and I'm delighted to be here. And it's a long time since I've stood in this room. In this position. It's had a total overhaul, but you have no idea how many computer science students I've taught standing right here, Franco. So anyway, it's great fun for me to be back, but more importantly, it's wonderful to see how interested our community is in exploring issues around justice, wrongful conviction, obviously, but so many other areas where we know that we can improve our justice system. And it's a delight that we have the Truscotts with us. It's great to see you, Stephen and Marlene, Ryan and Shane. It's great to see the whole family here to join in the lecture this evening. So I'm delighted to welcome to Guelph my colleague Yassir Naqvi. Yasser and I often end up together on the same committees or sitting near each other in the House. But I want to tell you a little bit about Yasser, because I think Yasser is it's like his whole life has been conspiring to get him to be the Attorney General. He's got an absolutely wonderful background for that. I don't know how many of you know that Yasser arrived with his family in Canada in 1988 after the Pakistani government imprisoned his father for leading a pro-democracy march in Pakistan. So Yasser, from a very young age, has been involved in, through his family, issues of democracy and constitutionality, and that's just been part of his heritage. He graduated from McMaster with both a BA and a BSc, a very good thing to do in my opinion. He has his LLB from the University of Ottawa, has been called to the bars of Ontario, obviously, but also England and Wales. And he has a master's in international affairs from the Norman Paterson School of International Affairs at Carleton University. So that broader international view. And in fact, he served as, when he first graduated, he practiced international trade law and was the Associate Director in International Trade Council for the Center for Trade Policy and Law. So a different perspective on law, international law, trade law. Since becoming an MPP in 2007, he was first appointed as a cabinet minister in February of 2013 as Minister of Labor. And of course, if you're going to talk about many issues that come before the courts, they're labor related. And then he served as Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services, so policing and jails, to put it in the vernacular, another important aspect of our justice system here in Ontario. So when he was appointed, and we were just talking, it was June of 2016, as our Attorney General for Ontario, he brings a whole host of prior experience to the post. So we are indeed honored to have you here tonight. Welcome, Yasser.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Well, thank you very much, Liz, for that very kind introduction. I consider Liz Sandals, of course, as a friend, but most importantly, as a mentor. She's absolutely right. Somehow we've always ended up in similar committees and treasury boards and cabinet committees, share a lot of similar values and views on things. And I have, over my time, almost a decade as a member of provincial parliament, have learned a lot from Liz Sandals. So Liz, thank you very much for everything. And thank you very much to all of you for being here. This is a bit daunting, I must say, to see a full house. Didn't realize that I'll be coming to Guelph giving a lecture at the Truscott Lecture series, and there will be that many people. So thank you for your interest and being here and joining us at the 4th Annual Truscott Lecture. Some great people have spoken here before, such as David Dobney, Stephen Gouch, and Anthony Dupe, to name a few. The Truscott initiative came about because of a miscarriage of justice. Unfortunately, Stephen Truscott and the Truscott family had to live through that experience. I think anyone would sympathize if the family never wanted to have anything to do with the justice system again. But instead, to their great credit, they created this initiative to improve understanding of the criminal justice system and to support a more informed public. The reality is that despite our collective best efforts, the justice sometimes get it wrong. That's why the Truscott Lecture series is so important, and why it's also important to have organizations that advocate for people who have experienced a miscarriage of justice, a wrongful conviction. Organizations like Innocence Canada. I'm sure many of you have heard of Innocence Canada. It's an organization that advocates for those who are all but forgotten by society. for people who are in the most vulnerable situations, people who have been convicted and sentenced of a crime and cannot afford their own lawyer. We need organizations like Innocence Canada to fight for those who have been forgotten. That's why in December, in partnership with the Law Society of Upper Canada, we announced that we are providing Innocence Canada with much needed funding so that they could continue their important work and sustain its operations in Ontario and across the country. I'm really honored to have this opportunity to contribute to the discussion about our justice system. I would like to begin by telling you why I personally deeply value and believe in our justice system. As Liz in her introduction alluded, my father was imprisoned in Pakistan. He took part in a political rally, the movement for the restoration of democracy. When I was 10 years old, I hugged him goodbye at the door, a vivid memory that I have to this day. We knew he might not come home that day. And he did not for 9 months. He was arrested and sent to prison hundreds of miles away. He was tried and convicted in a military court by a military general. Needless to say that my family and I missed him dearly at that time. Despite the distance, I don't think there was a single weekend we missed visiting him as a family. And my father's crime was that he was seeking people's right to vote. For this, he was jailed. So we came to Canada, where my family could pursue a passion for political activity. In fact, my father and brother have also run for office for the NDP. Yes, I am the red sheep of the family. They remind me this all the time. For me, it's been an incredible honor, first, just to have the privilege to run, to be elected and represent my community of Ottawa Centre, to serve in cabinet, and become government house leader. I also know that my childhood experience in Pakistan shaped me in another way. It is why I deeply value and believe in our justice system. And as Attorney General for the province of Ontario, I feel a profound sense of pride and responsibility as the administrator of justice in one of the world's greatest civil societies. But as much as I believe in our justice system, I have to recognize that it is not perfect. And when a system, any system, is imperfect, it is incumbent on us to call it out, to challenge the status quo, to fix it. Here in Canada, we have our Charter of Rights and Freedoms to protect individual rights. And we have a rigorous system of appeals up to the Supreme Court of Canada to ensure that rights are upheld. But if you have been following me lately, you'll know that I firmly believe that the pace of criminal justice is too slow, leading to that well-known expression, justice delayed is justice denied. So this evening, I want to focus my remarks on the challenge of the slow pace of Ontario's criminal justice system and what we are doing to address this challenge. I also want to touch on what we are doing to improve Ontario's bail system and how it complements our work on speeding up time to trial. Of course, I'm not alone in thinking that we need to speed up the criminal justice system, both in Ontario and across the country. Many of you are familiar with the Jordan decision. It has been a game changer. The Supreme Court's majority decision set out a new and clearly defined framework for protecting the constitutionally guaranteed right to be tried within a reasonable time under Section 11B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. For the first time, we now have a numerical presumptive ceiling on provincial court cases of 18 months and a ceiling of 30 months for superior court cases. When cases exceed these thresholds, judges may order a stay of proceedings and charges may be dismissed. Under the Jordan framework, courts will no longer consider whether delay has caused actual prejudice to the accused. Prejudice is now presumed by the passage of time. Also under Jordan, courts will no longer distinguish between the most serious cases, such as murder, and less serious cases in determining whether to issue a stay. In recent weeks and months, Ontarians have been seeing media stories about judges citing this ceiling and granting stays of proceedings. The stories include a murder case, a sexual assault on a child, and assault against an infant. Understandably, these stays have caused some real emotional pain and community anger. Another case involved, for example, a young person who died in a correctional facility. So the presumptive ceilings are not just impacting the accused, we all feel it. These stays are impacting trust and confidence in the administration of justice. Now, delays also erode public trust. But when our criminal courts are bottlenecked, daily dockets are jammed, and early trial days are hard to come by, the result is lengthy delays. These delays do not fulfill the right to prompt justice called for in the Charter. They are hard on victims and families. They leave everyone involved in kind of a limbo. And delays give the public a sense of dysfunction in the courts, which, in my view, erodes public trust. So the Supreme Court spoke on the issue, as it is their right and obligation to do. It described a culture of complacency towards delay in the criminal justice system. And I quote, "Broader structural and procedural changes, in addition to day-to-day efforts, are required to maintain the public's confidence by delivering justice in a timely manner." I agree. It is time for reform. It is time for change. The Supreme Court made it clear that the bar, the courts, and the governments can no longer operate business as usual, and complacency will not be tolerated. That is why in Ontario, since Jordan, we have been taking action. We have made new investments and strengthened day-to-day efforts to complete trials. We are looking at broad procedural changes to make the system more efficient. And I'll talk about these in a moment. But first, when I look at how the Jordan decision is being applied, I have two questions as the Attorney General. One, what has been the impact of Jordan on Ontario's criminal justice system so far? When the Supreme Court released its judgment 8 months ago, there were already thousands of cases in the system that were at or very close to the new presumptive ceiling. For those cases already in the system, Jordan was like changing the rules of the game in the middle of the third period. Except criminal justice is much more serious than hockey. That is why in its majority ruling, the Supreme Court went out of its way to recognize that there must be a transition period for cases already in the system. During this transition period, the court said, and I quote, "There are a variety of reasons to apply the framework contextually and flexibly for cases currently in the system. One being that it is not fair to strictly judge participants in the criminal justice system against standards of which they had no notice." The system is going to need time to adjust to these new rules. There's no doubt about that. However, I'm concerned that the court's guidance is not being applied evenly across Ontario or across Canada. Instead, we are already seeing some of the most serious and challenging cases in our system affected. These cases had no ability to adjust when the rules were changed by way of the Jordan decision. As a result, the Supreme Court decision that rightfully sought to create clarity and restore faith in the system may in fact be having the reverse effect thus far. My second question is this: how has the Jordan decision impacted the people of this province, in particular victims? As Attorney General, I'm acutely aware of the pain and sadness that is caused when a case is stayed. Unfortunately, we have all had occasions to hear too many of these stories in recent months. Families of victims have shown up in court for the start of a trial. This is already a highly emotional and potentially traumatic event. Their trauma is then deepened when it is announced that there will be no trial at all. Victims, families, witnesses, and the community are now dealing with a whole new set of emotions. It is my sincere hope that those families affected can find peace. They may never feel a true sense of justice, though. There will be no testimony in court, no verdict will be rendered. Importantly, the accused is also denied their day in court. This is not building trust, it is eroding trust. This is not reducing the impact on victims and families, it is re-victimizing. To ask the public to understand such a legality, in my opinion, is asking a lot. I feel this acutely not only because it has happened during my time as Attorney General, but because it has happened in my own community of Ottawa. Ontario is, of course, responding to the Jordan challenge, as I mentioned earlier. The judiciary, Crowns, the defense bar, legal aid, our hardworking court staff are coming together to identify, triage, and resolve as many cases as they can as quickly as possible. Since July, Crown offices have been reviewing cases against the Jordan timelines and developing strategies to prioritize cases that are at risk or may be at risk. We have dedicated more resources for judicial pretrials to get potentially at-risk cases to trial faster. Trial days have also been moved up for at-risk cases so they can be completed in a shorter time. And we are also adding people to the system. We're appointing 13 new judges to the bench of the Ontario Court of Justice. Earlier this afternoon in Kitchener, I announced that one of these new judges will be located right here in your community. We're adding 32 assistant Crown attorneys to our ranks. We're providing funding to Legal Aid Ontario for 16 more duty counsels, and we're increasing support with 26 new courtroom staff. For the last 3 years, we have increased access for legal aid by 6%, and we'll be doing so again on April the 1st this year. We are ensuring that cases are resolved faster by having more assistant Crown attorneys working on them, and more judges to hear them, and more accused with legal representation. We also need to ensure time and resources can be dedicated to the most serious cases by dealing more efficiently with the less serious cases at the front end of the system. So the Ministry of the Attorney General is implementing new measures to administer bail more efficiently in Ontario. Right now, we have vulnerable, low-risk people in our correctional facilities who should be out in the community on bail. Too often, they're not, because they lack the right supports. A disproportionate number of them are Indigenous or racialized or have complex mental health needs. But keeping them in custody can impact their income or disrupt care and other supports. And holding them in jail places a huge financial burden on the entire justice system. At the same time, high-risk accused who are rightly being denied bail are waiting too long for their day in court. So we are following through on a comprehensive plan to enhance public safety and make the justice system work better. This starts with getting the right people in the right places to support faster, more effective bail decisions. This means high-volume courts will have bail bearers, specially trained and empowered Crowns who work to make bail courts more efficient, and who help facilitate faster bail decisions and resolutions while maintaining public safety. We're funding Legal Aid Ontario to provide experienced duty counsel bail coordinators to work in the same high-volume bail court locations as the bail Vera Crowns are working. Duty counsel bail coordinators will work with Crowns to triage and expedite the bail process at the courthouse and ensure fast, effective, and productive bail decisions are being made. We're also embedding experienced Crown attorneys in police stations to provide early advice on bail and cases concerning vulnerable accused. Next, we're adding more ways to support low-risk accused while they await trial. Expanded bail verification and supervision will get more people safely and quickly released into the community. A new Indigenous bail and remand program to be run by Indigenous service providers will allow low-risk accused to remain in their communities while awaiting trial, including in remote communities in our province. There will be more ideas to come in exactly in this direction. We have appointed 3 prominent legal experts to offer their expertise on reforming Crown policies on bail. Former Chief Justice Brian Lennox, former Deputy Attorney General Murray Siegel, and Deputy Crown Attorney Laurie Montague are doing that work as we speak. Our measures are all in the spirit of the Supreme Court majority's concluding statement on Jordan decision, which said, and I quote, "Ultimately, all participants in the justice system must work in concert to achieve speedier trials." Of course, in our federation, all participants in the justice system should include the federal government. They too have a role in meeting obligations that are constitutionally required. The Senate Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs has made very valuable contributions to understanding issues around trial delays. They have been clear that federal action is needed. The Supreme Court in Jordan was clear on this point as well. So in February, I made 3 requests to the Federal Minister of Justice. The first one is to fill 11 vacancies on the Superior Court bench in Ontario. This was a problem before the Jordan decision. It is absolutely critical now. At a time of great need, we're losing hundreds of hours of judicial time every month across the Superior Court of Justice due to these lingering vacancies. Senator George Baker, the Senate Committee Deputy Chair, put it this way, and I quote, "The combination of an excessive number of vacancies along with the deadlines set by the Supreme Court has created the perfect storm. The government must act quickly to fill these vacancies in order to maintain public confidence in the justice system." Yet, simply adding resources to the system will not address all of the delay issues, and I want to be frank about that. We need to make bold changes to speed up and simplify the criminal court process. That led to my second request. I asked the Federal Minister of Justice to pursue some very specific changes to the criminal code as part of the minister's forthcoming criminal justice review. It is our view that the long-held rationales for preliminary inquiries simply no longer exist. I have therefore asked the minister to consider criminal code reforms that will significantly curtail the use of preliminary inquiries in criminal cases destined for the Superior Court. Preliminary inquiries were originally put in place over 100 years ago to test the strength of a case and share information. There are now more effective and efficient ways to assess charges, most notably a Crown screening standard that is higher than the preliminary inquiry test for committal, along with robust disclosure process as required by the Supreme Court of Canada in R versus Stinchcomb. Eliminating or limiting the use of preliminary inquiries is not a new idea. Perhaps, most importantly, it was recommended in multiple reports and most recently even mentioned in the Supreme Court's Jordan decision. My third request was that the Minister of Justice should convene a special meeting with provincial and territorial attorneys general at the earliest opportunity to discuss the Jordan decision and its implications for criminal justice in Canada. Let's be honest, there will be more stays of proceedings. Many applications are before courts all across Canada. The Supreme Court minority in the Jordan decision said that the new framework and transitional provisions will not avoid the risk of many stays of judicial proceedings. Collectively, we need to reassure Canadians that we are working to ensure that this does not happen. A national meeting would send a clear message to victims, their families, and all Canadians. And that message is following. We know this is unacceptable. We are acting on it. And the justice system in Canada can do better. As Attorney General, I want to assure Ontarians that we will do everything possible in our province to avoid stays of proceedings, especially in serious cases. We know we need to ensure justice is delivered more efficiently and promptly. We need people in the justice system working more effectively together, seeing cases involving murder and other serious offenses stayed, seeing added pain brought upon victims and families, seeing the frustration in communities and the eroding trust in society. These all remind us that justice delays is indeed justice denied, not just for some, but for us all. This is among the fundamental principles that hold our great society together. Ontarians must feel confident that prompt and proper justice will be served. And that is what we will do collectively when we work together. Thank you very much for your time and patience this evening. And I believe there is going to be time for questions and answers, and I look forward to engaging in a discussion. Thank you very much.